Well, hello, that's me again. Today is May 22. I believe it's Monday, so happy Monday, everybody. And let me start with explanation of some fundamental things. And people, believe me, I'm being assaulted in a good sense by all kinds of my patrons and other people just asking questions over and over again. Some of those questions are generally the same. And let me start explanation with the definition of strategy. People constantly ask that what is strategy? Okay, here it is. Strategy essentially is a general plan. It's the plan of in general form, so to speak, and there are all kinds of strategies, obviously, but as I already stated many times before, there is for example, national defense strategy, like Russia has, or United States pretends that it has it, and of course there is a purely military strategy for the war, where the victory is defined as the achieving of the political objectives of the war, or political aims. Obviously, the strategy essentially is the end, so to speak. It defines the end. While tactics and operational art, which ties together strategy and tactics, are means to this end. And as I already stated, the strategy can be developed for both national level security issues, or for the war, or for the campaign, such as the special military operations in Russia, by Russia. And if you look at this, you will see yourself that actually it creates a very clear-cut picture, as long as you know what your strategy is, what your plan is. And here is the thing which I'm constantly stating, and I'm on record. I wrote 3 books on that. I'm writing 4th one. West in general and United States in particular cannot do strategy. And as my good colleague, Mr. Alexander Rogers says, they cannot do strategy, they do only business plans. And this is exactly what it is. And so I'm gonna start and show you strategy on the part of the combined West, which of course actually puppeteering the Ukraine and whatever is left of the armed forces of Ukraine. And many people obviously begin to speak now and ask questions that, what's going to happen after Artyomovsk fell? Well, special military operation will continue, that's what it is. And again, strategic aims and strategy was designed to, remember, denazify and demilitarize Ukraine, and in the end demilitarize NATO and roll it back to the borders of 1997. And how it will be approached, or how it will be dealt with in terms of the tactics, so to speak, and operational art, we can certainly sit and speculate here and discuss it. It's absolutely legitimate way to discuss those things, but remember that strategy is a general plan. It's the general plan which in general describes the political and military aims of the war, so to speak. And that's, let me show you the strategies which are employed by the armed forces of Ukraine, or rather the remnants of the armed forces of Ukraine, who get direct orders from London and Washington. And if you look attentively at this, this is the only thing they can do, which is of course essentially saboteur raid by the what is called DRG, Диверсионно-разведывательная группа, diversionary recon group. It depends how many people could be in there. There could be anything between the squad, some like 8 people, to platoon, and sometimes somebody can do some type of the diversionary raid, which can involve a little bit larger number of the soldiers and saboteurs. Well, that's the only thing which Ukraine can do. and that's attack peaceful population of the Russia border regions, such as Belgorod, and yeah, they will be killing civilians. I don't be surprised that I speak in such a monotone manner about basically what will be committing of the war crimes, but what can I say? It is what it is, and I am on record. I stated it will continue for a while. I don't know, a year or two, until all this banditry and underground and its connections to the Western special services such as MI6, CIA, and other will be completely obliterated, and people who actually were doing this will be brought to justice, especially against the background of the collapsing West. And it is collapsing as we speak, and only people who are just completely sublime or complete idiots, which could be the synonym really, cannot see that. And militarily, the situation is very desperate. And that brings us back to this thing. And as you already know, that I am not very impressed with the present American or Western political elite. And again, elite cannot be really applied to those people. They are primarily ignorant, and they are absolutely unqualified and not adequate for running anything of value or tangible, which constitutes the statesmanship. That means the running of the state's affairs professionally and competently. They are not. And basically what we have a panopticon. And panopticon, you can look up the basically the definition of the panopticon. It was the actually French, I believe, jail, which was created and built such way that you could see everything what was happening on the inside of each chamber, of each room, so to speak, and prison cell. But obviously panopticon also became the synonym and euphemism for basically totally disgusting and for everyone to see proceedings, be them in politics, be them in culture, what have you. And we have a panopticon in Washington, D.C. And if you want to see the level to which it all degenerated and why the West cannot do strategy and why they miscalculated on a such massive level that it is difficult to even explain, here it is, just to demonstrate you, give you some examples. Here's the State Department yesterday. They sent, or not yesterday, I'm lying, 2 days ago, and they sent accidentally some email, internal email, which misgendered employees. And some of them have been triggered, and because of that, the State Department will offer counseling to any employee who feels hurt or upset by a system-wide email glitch that temporarily assigned random and often incorrect gender pronouns to staff. So let me ask you a question. Can you imagine people in Smolensk Square in Moscow, which is of course the building, this magnificent Stalin's Empire beautiful Minister of Foreign Affairs building, how do you think they react to this? They laugh their asses off. I mean, because what will be your reaction? I mean, these are the type of the people you have to deal with. And actually, well, you don't have to deal with, I don't think so anybody takes them seriously anywhere in the world. But if this wasn't enough, we can, of course, have this guy. And, oh my gosh, it's just absolutely stunning. This is the sign of a complete desperation. Here's Mr. McFall 2 days ago explaining that in a few years and commenting on the F-16 transfer, Ukraine will be armed with F-16s, Patriots, and hopefully THAAD missile defense systems, HIMARS and ATACMS, and Abrams tanks. Russia will still have MiG-29s, S-300s, 400s, and T-72s. The balance of military power is shifting in Ukraine's direction. The guy is, well, we know he's a moron, actually, and as pretty much most of people who graduate all those Ivy League and what have you, foreign affairs and government programs, because they teach them absolutely nothing. They basically brainwash them and indoctrinate them. And if you look attentively even at McFall's bio, we already know who he is. You know, he earned a BA in International Relations, Slavic languages. By the way, his Russian is horrible. He cannot speak proper Russian Russian. And he was rather scholar. He earned a Doctor of Philosophy in International Relations. He wrote his dissertation on U.S. and Soviet intervention in revolutionary movements in Southern Africa. So, yeah, sure. I mean, this is basically the level of the referat, which, let's say, third, fourth year student of serious higher education facility in Russia writes. But this is the level of those people. The guy, we know, he was ambassador, U.S. ambassador in Russia, and he screwed it up so badly that, I mean, and this is the guy who actually was obviously the advisor on Russia to Obama. So there is no problem understanding why those people have no clue what they are doing and why they're failing time after time after time, because they literally know nothing, especially when it comes down to military affairs. And here is the issue. So we have this new, so to speak, tune, new song, you know, long play, repeating itself time after time, about that now the United States wants to transfer F-16s to Russia. Well, it is decision of Biden and cabal which runs him, and because he obviously cannot make any decision, sensible decision, he absolutely, person who is absolutely inadequate for the post of the president of the United States. But here we are, he was elected by somebody, and we have the guy, and he says that, okay, now let's send F-16s. Why is he sending F-16s? At least he intends to, or whoever controls him. Well, the issue is very simple. Every other system of the United States which have been delivered to Ukraine failed miserably in the modern battlefield. Now, as everybody who has any clue on the matters of the tactics, strategy, or any kind of military issues, they say, as Colonel McGregor today says, and I write about this non-stop, it's all desperation. And F-16 is the only machine, so to speak, is the only thing which actually the United States can supply without blowing completely its other mythology, so to speak, and exposing absolute unusability of their American weapon systems against the enemy on the modern battlefield, be that Patriot missile complex, be that F-35 or what have you. So here we have F-16. Let's throw another thing at Ukraine, and you know what? It's becoming so, I mean, nauseating now explaining. The machine, the F-16 is a beautiful plane, as I already stated, but there is a sort of school of thought going around there that, oh my gosh, they send it to kind of clear their billets, so to speak, to clear the inventory and then start basically selling F-35s. There is one problem with this hypothesis, of course, is the fact that if you look attentively at this, and here is the, for example, U.S. arms sales from Statista for 2019. And you will see yourself that the largest customer of the U.S. weapons is Saudi Arabia. Then, of course, comes Australia, then comes United Arab Emirates, South Korea, and Qatar, what have you. Then, of course, we go into the more modern type of the arms expert, and as you can see yourself, but first they use some idiotic TIV expressed in million constant 90 US dollars. I mean, it's all this cooking of the books BS which they do, but still look at this. You can see yourself that still Kuwait remains major recipient, then now Saudi Arabia, then Qatar, then Ukraine, and United Arab Emirates. But you will say, why did I highlight it in yellow, for example, Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, and possibly Kuwait? Let me explain. And that explains also the issue with F-16 and other things. Because in yellow are the countries which United States may lose over the this coming decade as a major markets. For example, Saudi Arabia already knows that Patriot missile systems do not work. They learned it the hard way, and they expressed desire to have Russian S-400 long time ago. The same as many other Russian weapon systems, which proved themselves beyond reasonable doubt on the battlefield. Same goes for the United Arab Emirates, by the way, which also at some point of time financed the development of the now legendary and immensely effective Panzer air defense system. And when you look at this, not to speak about such countries as Turkey, you will see yourself that suddenly American market of the weapons market for the United States is primarily kind of located in Europe, and maybe Philippines and other client states, and maybe Japan, something like that, because obviously Japan had its Air Force program sabotaged by the United States. They never produced the appropriate fighter for themselves, and believe me, it will take a long time for them to develop anything like this. So these are the only markets United States can sell. Hence, what I already discussed with you is the issue of the State Department suddenly issuing this so-called strategy, which was obviously a very raw document concocted in the wake of the annihilation of the Patriot PAC-3 in order to accelerate sales of American weaponry. There is nothing of real value which is coming in terms of the new American military technology. United States is still pushing forward with its hypersonic programs, but I'm on record. Realistically, real hypersonic weapons are not in plans because it takes a long years to develop those, and the United States will not have anything comparable to Zircon anytime soon, if ever. Maybe something similar to Kinjal, its first versions, because evidently there are now second iterations of Kinjal, much faster and probably longer range. So, and when you look at this, you understand this panic and desperation. They throwing dead things on them. On Ukraine in desperate attempt in trying to somehow produce some kind of pinprick tactical result. And before I close the arms sales thing, you can see yourself that it's from the 2022, when United States actually was in January 25, 2023, but it was the result of the summary for 2022. And look at this. Sales of military weapons between the US and foreign governments shot up to nearly 51.9 billion in fiscal 2022, largely because US allies in Europe are rushing to arm themselves in the wake of Russia's invasion of Ukraine 11 months ago. Exactly. This is my point. United States will have their arms market primarily for their, so to speak, European customers, and very many countries already seeing, and they know what they want to buy. This, if you remember that India rebuked the United States on the number of issues pertaining, for example, the purchase of S-400. Then Turkey wants S-500, and now you can say that if Erdogan wins, we can easily see the prospects of Turkey obtaining either Su-35s, full, not export versions, or export version of Su-57. And evidently, as Su-75, checkmate coming up. These are bad news for United States military industrial complex, and because, you know what, there are not stupid people out there, as United States, as Washington thinks everybody are. They are really primitive in their ruses, and they have to really see the results of what is happening. And hence this last desperate attempt to throw F-16. F-16 will be shut down as pretty much anything before. For example, if you look yesterday's tally, and I already showed it, but actually since yesterday it's already increased number of the combat aircraft of armed forces of Ukraine shut down by Russia. But as you can see yourself, in terms of the 428 fixed wing aircraft and 234 rotary wing aircraft, I'm not talking about for almost 4,500 UAVs, Russian Air Force and Russian Air Defense shut down 662 F-52 combat aircraft. And I also gave the kind of introduction to the scale of it. Here it is. Russian air defense and Russian Air Force within the 14 months wiped out of the skies equivalent, actually larger than equivalent of the French Air Force in 2023, which had 658 aircraft. That means that Russians annihilated every single aircraft in the French Air Force inventory, be them combat aircraft, fighters, bombers, what have you, transport aircraft. And that pretty much gives you some insight into the scale of the massacre of all those weapons. And here's the other thing, which many people still do not get. F-16, while built 60 and still dangerous aircraft, it is primarily obsolete. Obsolete doesn't mean that you are not dangerous. Listen, give me the 19th century cannonball, front-loading cannon. I still can blow the house. It's still a dangerous weapon, but it is obsolete for the modern battlefield. And F-16 is obsolete, and the fact that Biden administration is trying to desperately stave off the de facto military defeat of NATO is confirmed today by none other than actually Air Force Secretary, who is Mr. Frank Kendall. He tells reporters this morning that sending F-16 to Ukraine is going to help in the conflict, but it is not going to be a dramatic game changer. It's not going to be dramatic or any other game changer whatsoever, and there are reasons for that. And the reason for this is this very interesting story. And we already know the capabilities of the Russian Air Force and Russian air defense, but here's a little bit which needs to be actually constantly stressed. You see this? This is a Russian air search radar called Resonance N. Resonance N is a funny establishment. It could be really fastly or speedily erected in any direction. And for example, in Russian Novaya Zemlya, they have already, I believe 5, they will have 10 of those. And then, of course, many countries actually buy this resonance. Here's, for example, Egyptian resonance, which covers actually whole of Israel. The range of this resonance, which is specifically designed to shoot down any kind of aerial target, including the low flying, and it is over the horizon radar. It is also designed to detect and develop firing solution against the hypersonic targets, which of course Combined West doesn't have, and nobody knows when it will. And the range of the detection of this specific radar, Resonance N, is 1200 kilometers, and it is 600 kilometers for the purely aerial targets, including the low-flying cruise missiles and what have you. And it could be very fastly erected. And I believe that Russians already probably erecting it somewhere else. Not because, as you can see yourself, Egypt bought it and they love it. And then, of course, here's the other news about this resonance. And this is 2 years ago. And this is from serious military sources. Here's one of the resonances, and this is the resonance in, again, Egypt. And look at this. As highlighted by in yellow, it was specifically a Russian resonance NE, which is expert, in the start of the 2020, after Iran on the 8th of January launched missile strikes on 2 military bases in Iraq, responding for the murder of the General Qasem Soleimani, because everybody who tells me that Mr. Trump and his administration didn't react on that, they did actually, because they launched the whole basically sortie of the group of the F-35s. Guess what? Iran saw it. It took them on basically track, locked on them, and then when they were approaching Iran in the open air, broadcasted their course, their details of how many were in those group, and that they basically were tracking them and developing fire solution by their air defense complexes. This is what haven't been told. hasn't been told, but this is what really prevented actually the retaliation of the United States on Iran after Iran responded on the basically murder of General Soleimani by basically employing resonance and tracking the U.S. Air Force F-35s. And again, F-35s, F-22, it makes no difference whatsoever for the modern battlefield. And in this particular case, F-16 is just like last attempt to do something. Will neocons, because they're so crazy and absolutely Russophobic, they hate Russian gods, they hate the Russian genetics, if you wish, give the tactical nuclear weapons to Ukraine? Oh yes, they would. Absolutely. They not only they are ignorant, they are desperate, and we already can see the unraveling actually of the whole Western, so to speak, edifice or the establishment with, especially Mr. Zelensky, just basically, begging for all kinds of weapons that they will make no difference whatsoever. And as I already stated, after Patriot Pack 3 annihilation, they're still assessing the damage. I believe the crater which was left after it, and they say it still could be repaired. We're talking at Russians obviously rubbing their hands, being very happy about the fact that the huge Russian Rosaboron export contracts are coming, and there is a line literally for Russian air defense systems, cruise missiles, tanks, what have you. Well, let alone we're talking about the combat aircraft. So you have to perform. You cannot just go around saying that you are the best and then failing to perform. And that's what happened in the special military operation. And this, starting from the tactical to operational to strategic level, is what actually dictates the lack of strategy on the part of Washington, because they are trying to basically maintain some kind of the appearances. This is the only thing those people can do. This is the only background they can do. It's PR. They are bad diplomats, worst military planners. I mean, absolutely stupid economists that they cannot run the country. Well, actually, they can run the country. They ran this wonderful, once beautiful and great country of the United States into freaking into ground. And we are seeing today basically the third world unfolding all over the United States. And those people still continue to fight about, misgendering somebody, and they're still thinking that Russia is stuck in 1990s. But again, when you have such intelligence services who do not know basically what is going on, they're just absolutely useless. And this is what we observe today. And fact is, the old generation of the people, of the American professionals, military, diplomat professionals, as Larry Johnson posted on his wonderful blog, you can go and read this, and he basically posted the letter from organization, the Eisenhower Media Network, which they posted important letter pleading for some sanity in Washington with respect to Ukraine and Russia. And look at this. You can see, you can recognize some names there. For example, obviously, as Jack Matlock, the U.S. ambassador to the United States, Soviet Union, in 87-91, and I was on RT crosstalk with wonderful woman, Lieutenant Colonel, a courageous American officer, retired Karen Kwiatkowski. Even Jeffrey Sachs wrote there, so signed this letter, but will this letter have any influence or impact? I don't think so. But it's good that those people, they write those letters and they make their position heard. So what can you say? Will F-16s arrive to Ukraine? Maybe. And again, I'm talking about that there will be no Ukrainian pilots flying them. And if they ever arrive, this indeed, many people say that, yeah, it takes many months and they need to have obviously ground support. And as you can see yourself, Russia ran completely out of missiles. I'm being facetious, of course. And the ground infrastructure for those F-16s will not be, in operation for long once they get there. And If they want to launch it from somewhere, Poland or Romania, then, well, guess what? You may forget about Article 5, because in this particular case, those countries will be engaged, and Russia will basically attack them. And that is why Russia has this 600, whatever, the huge number actually, in reserves, preparing for any kind of the contingencies. And we'll see where it is all going after the fall of Artyomovsk, but I think so that at this stage, no matter what they provide for Ukraine and whatever is left of the armed forces of Ukraine, it will make no difference. They will still can actually throw the cannon fodder at Russians and impale it, what's left, but judging by the numbers trickling down from Artyomovsk, Bakhmut, ordeal, they basically lost there something on the order of 65,000 KIAs alone. Some people say it's much more than that. So there you go. That's your basically, another day in Russian special military operation. So, and this is what I wanted to tell you about those F-16s and how actually the situation shapes itself, and we are facing interesting developments within the Western world, because I don't think so those regimes in London or Berlin or Paris can endure, especially once the truth becomes fully available, and some people begin to really sound alarm, like this US Air Force Secretary today, who stated, yeah, that's not going to be a game changer, really, and of course it's not. They're all going to be shut down or obliterated on the ground. So, and again, as always, guys, please, those who like what I do, please support me on Patreon or buy me a coffee too, and subscribe to my channel if you like what I am doing and want me to continue. Other than that, happy Monday, have a nice work week in front of you, and I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.